Now that we're familiar with some of the basic statistics like mean, median, and mode, and a really simple display like a dot plot, in this section we're going to talk about some more interesting things and some more interesting measurements when we're talking about statistics. So this is section 12.2. I can compute quartiles. The word there is quartiles, Q-U-A-R-T-I-L-E-S. Range, and then understand variability. So again, the I can statement, I can compute quartiles, range, and understand variability. So the warm-up question here says, what is the root word of the word variable? So we're going to be talking about variability. Let's talk about what variable means. So the word variable, what is the root word of the word variable? Well, it's right there. We just spell it a little bit different. We spell it with a Y, vary. So that means things are changing. They're going up, they're going down, or something like that. They can change from time to time, so they vary. And then it says in part B, it says, what do the following words mean when referring to data? So the minimum, and then the maximum, the minimum and maximum. So when we're talking about data, when we're talking about minimums, so let's see, maybe we could call that would be the least or the smallest number. Least or the smallest number. And when we're talking about maximum, let's see, instead of least, we'd call that maybe the greatest number, or we could call it the biggest number. That would be okay there. So minimum, that's going to be the smallest, and then maximum, that's going to be the biggest. Now, we can use mean, median, and mode to measure the center of the data. In other words, what typically happens. Okay. However, the center of the data is not the only thing that we might be interested in. It can also be really useful to know how spread out the data is. So how spread out the data is. If the data is really spread out, then this means there is a lot of variability in the data. So there's that word again, variability. Variability in the data. It varies a lot. The data is really spread out. And if the data is not spread out, in other words, if it's really clustered together, packed together, then there is not a lot of variability in the data. And there are a couple different statistics that we can use to measure the spread and variability in the data set. So yesterday we were talking a lot about center. Today we're going to be talking a lot about spread. How much variability there is in the data set. So rather than look at an entire data set, we can actually just look at a couple of numbers, 5 numbers in fact, that will help us get an idea of how spread out the data is and how much variability there is in the data set. Now, not surprisingly, if we're going to use 5 numbers, we call these the 5 number summary. And this is a pretty standard thing. Remember, we talked about statistics kind of gives us an organized set of rules to argue with numbers and to come to conclusions with numbers. So here's what we're going to do. First thing is we're going to divide them into quartiles. So quartiles divide the data sets into 4 equal parts. So I've got a line right here, and I've got an end marked here and an end marked right there. If we're going to divide this in 4, there's a pretty easy way to do it visually. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of eyeball where the center is. So we're going to put a little mark right there. And then if we're going to divide this into 4 pieces, I've got a bottom half, so we're going to eyeball where the center of the bottom half is. We're going to put a mark right there. And then we're going to eyeball the center of the top half. We're going to put it like that. Well, each one of these is a quarter of the data. So what we do is we say, okay, this is the end of the first quarter, so we're going to call that Q1. This is the end of the second quarter, so we're going to call that Q2. And this is the end of the third quarter, so we're going to call that Q3. Now, we've actually got names for these other things. We'll deal with that in just a second. So this is quartile 1. We're going to, again, call that Q1. A big capital Q with a subscript 1, a little smaller and set down a little bit lower. It's the top of the bottom 1/4 of the data. So the first fourth, that's why we call it Q1. It's the top of the bottom 1/4 of the data. Q2, quartile 2, again, big capital Q and then a subscript 2, is the top of the bottom 2/4 of the data. Now we do want to point this out, since it's the top of the bottom 2/4 of the data. It's right in the middle. Well, we know what the middle is. We've got another name for that. It's also called the median. So I'm going to put MED there for median. Okay, so Q2 is also the median. In fact, we very seldom write Q2. A lot of times we'll just call that the median. Okay, and then quartile 3, Q3, it's the top of the bottom 3/4 of the data. That's why we use a 3 to represent that. Okay, so that's right there. It's the very top of the bottom 3/4 of the data, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, so it goes right there. And then there are two other points that we need for our 5-number summary. We need the minimum, okay, so we need the smallest data point, the smallest it can be. So this right here is the min. And then we need the maximum. We need the biggest data value right there. Okay, so this is going to be the max. Okay, and in fact, I'm actually going to go ahead and switch the two of these. I'm going to call that the min right here, and I'm going to put Q2 up above there, just so that looks a little bit better. So here's our 5-number summary right here. We've got the min and the max. We've got the, whoops, need median right there. Need to write median. Okay, so we've got the min and the max. We've got median right here, and then we've got Q1. That's the first quartile, and then we've got Q3. That's the third quartile. So it's a way of breaking this up with 5 numbers, breaking up this data set into 4 equal chunks. We've got Q1 right here, Q2 right here, Q3 right here, and Q4 right here. So that's the basic idea, is we use those 5 numbers to break it up into those 4 equal parts. So here are steps for finding the 5-number summary. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to arrange the data in ascending order. Ascending means that we're going to do this from smallest to biggest. So whatever our data set is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to arrange it in ascending order. Another way that we could describe that is we could just say put it in numeric order. That means smallest to biggest. Okay. Determine the min and the max. Those are usually the easiest to do because this is the very smallest one and this is the very biggest one. They're the ones on the ends. Min would be here, max would be right here. And then we're going to determine the median. Whoops, median. In other words, determine what Q2 is. So that we already know how to do that. And then determine Q1 and Q3. Okay, so Q1 is the median of the bottom half of the data. That's how we're going to do this. Now you may run into people that argue about how to find Q1 and Q3, but this is pretty well accepted, and this is how we're going to do it. Q1 is going to be the median, so it's going to be the middle of the bottom half of the data. And Q3 is going to be the median of the top half of the data. And when we say that, what we're talking about is we're talking about Q1 is going to be the median of this bottom half right here, and Q3 is going to be the median of this top half right there. That's how we're going to look at that, and that's how we're going to find Q1 and Q3. So let's come down here and let's take a look at example number 1. It says find the 5-number summary. So find the 5-number summary for the speeds of vehicles traveling through a 25-mile-per-hour construction zone. So somebody sat out, they kind of had a radar gun, maybe it was a police officer or something like that, and they said, okay, the first one's going 20 miles an hour, next one 24, 27, and so forth and stuff like that. Now, there is something nice about this data set. Do you notice what it is? It's already in order. Okay, so if it's already in order, they've done a huge amount of work for us. Okay, so we're going to write already in ascending. I'll use the fancy word for that, ascending order. So it's already ordered from least to greatest. So let's run through these steps here. Steps for finding a 5-number summary. Arrange it in ascending order. Well, that pane is done for us. Okay, determine the min and the max. So the min is the smallest one, and I'm just going to draw an arrow to that. The max is the largest one, so we've got that taken care of. It says determine the median. The next thing we want to do is we want to find the median. Well, we've got to count how many there are. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So there are 14 here. So n is equal to 14. So that means 14 plus 1 is 15. Divided by 2 is 7.5. That means it's going to be between the 7th one and the 8th one. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the 7th one is here, the 8th one is right here. So what that means is the median is going to be right there. So the median will be right there. It's going to be right in between. Whoops, did I count wrong? I did. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, right here. There we go. That looks better. So the median is going to go right there. Okay, so if the median is right here, it's got to be right in between 32 and 33. So we'd add those up and divide by 2. Or in other words, it would be right smack dab in the middle of those two. So it's going to be 32.5. Okay, so we've got that taken care of. All right, now I draw a line right here when I get to the median, because what we've done here is we've broken this into a top half and a bottom half. I need to find the middle of this bottom half right here. Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, if we want to do this, kind of just march in from the ends, that right there is Q1. Okay, that is Q1. This is Q2, or the median. Okay, and then I can do the same thing over here. I can just march in from the ends and look at that. There's our, whoops, got to change colors here. That right, oh, what happened there? Here we go, there it is. That right there is Q3. Now, we could remember we said that there were 7 of them in this lower half. 7 plus 1 divided by 2 would be 4. So it should be the 1, 2, 3, 4th one, and it is the 4th one. And notice that helps us out up here, because if there are 7 down in this lower half, there's going to be 7 up here in this upper half. It would be the 4th one there also. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a 4th one. Okay, so that's it. That's how we find a 5-number summary. So the minimum on this one is 20. The maximum is 49. The median is right in between the 7th and the 8th one, so that's going to be 32.5. And then Q1 is 28, and Q3 is 38. Okay, and that's it. Okay. Now, there are some other numbers that we can use to talk about the spread of the data and how much variability there are. So I'm going to introduce those right now. So the range is just the difference between the maximum and the minimum. So the range is the max minus the min. Okay, it wants to know how far is it from the smallest one to the biggest one. And then there's something called the interquartile range, which we're going to abbreviate, and you can see why. That's kind of a mouthful and it's a long thing to write. So the interquartile range, the IQR, is the the range of the middle 50% of the data. So remember, this is Q1 right here, and this is Q3 right here. So, and median right here. So we've got a quarter here, a quarter here, a quarter here, and quarter here. Well, we want to find the range for the middle 50%, because some weird things can happen out on the ends, but usually this middle stuff is pretty informative. There's a lot of good information in there. So what we want to do is we want to find the range of that middle 50%, the range in between the quartiles, if you wanted to think of it that way. So the way we'd find the distance from here to here is we take Q3 and we subtract Q1. We take Q3 and we subtract Q1. So on this problem up above, it says find the range in the interquartile range, the IQR. So the range is going to be the max minus the min. So that's going to be 49 minus 20. So the range is 29. That's a measure of how spread out the data is right there. And the IQR, the interquartile range, just the spread of the middle 50%, is going to be Q3, which is 38, minus Q1, which is 28. So, so that's going to be 10. So the range is 29, and the IQR, the interquartile range, is 10. So great example right there, shows all of the basic information. I'm going to flip this page over, and let's take a look at this problem right here. Sometimes visualizing how things work and how things fit together is a really helpful thing, and that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to do a visual of how the 5-number summary and the range and the interquartile range, how those are related. So remember, the smallest one, this is the min. The biggest one, this is the max. The median is the one right in the middle, so we're going to eyeball that. That's the median, also called Q2. And then the middle of that bottom half is called Q1, and the middle of the top half is called Q3. Sometimes we call, whoops, that needs a 1 on there. We call those the quartiles, okay? So we've got median and we've got quartiles that really help break it up. And then there's, I mean, there's no helping. That's the end on this, and that's the end on that. So we've got a min down here and a max up there. So let's visualize what the range is. The range is how spread out all of the data is. So I'm going to draw a little bracket that goes kind of like this. That right there is the range. It's the distance from the top to the bottom. And then the interquartile range is just this distance right here, okay? It's how spread out that middle 50% of the data is. So that's the IQR right there. So that's how the 5-number summary and the range and the interquartile range are related. So let's talk about this. The greater the range, the greater the variability in the data set. So the bigger the range is and the bigger the IQR are, that means there's more variation in the data set. They're more spread out. Okay, so the range and the IQR, those are measures of how spread out the data is. All right, so we're going to come down here and we're going to take a look at one that's actually from your assignment. This is problem number 7, so let's run through and do this one as quick as we can. So the first thing we're going to have to do, and we notice that, oh, this is going to be kind of a pain because it's not in order and we have a ton of data here. So it's going to be important that we keep this really nice and neat and organized. So let's run through and see what we've got here. Let's see if we got anything smaller than a 2. We don't have any negatives. That's good. We've got a 1 right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and cross that off lightly, and I'm going to write a 1. And again, if we kind of keep these organized, it'll be a good double check on us. So let's see, we've got a 2. Any other 2s? I don't see, whoops, there's another 2. We've got a 3 here. Okay. And then we've got a 4. And then let's see, do we have any 5s? Nope, we've got a 6, and a 6. Okay, we've got 3 of those. Let's see, we've got a 7. We've got an 8 and an 8. And let's see, we've got a 9, and a 9. You can see how big a pain in the butt this is to write these in order. Okay, and now we're getting down here. Now we've got an 11, a 12, and a 13. So 11, a 12, and a 13. So cross off the 11, 12, and the 13. And we've got an 18, and we've got a 19. Okay, so we've got those all in order, and as I wrote each one underneath the one above it, we can see that they line up here. So we've got them all in order. We've got them all represented. So let's see how many there are here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So there are actually 19 of them all together here. Let's double check. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. Okay, we are going to have to add those up. I'll do that in just a second. But let's find the median. 20 divided by 2, that's going to be 10. So we're looking for the 10th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is the 10th one right here. Okay, so the 10th one is right there. Now if that's the case, we should have exactly the same number on either side. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 over there. Now if there are 9 on the bottom, that means, let's see, 9 plus 1, that would be 10 divided by 2. That means the 5th one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means this one right here ought to be Q1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one ought to be Q3. So we've got the, whoops, all right, median here. Median, Q1, Q3, and then again, the min and the max they're really easy to find. Okay, so the min and the max are right there. So let's write down what we've got. The minimum is 1. The maximum is 19. The median is 8. Quartile 1, Q1 is 4, and Q3 is 11. That works out really nicely. And let's see, the range is going to be the difference between the two of these. So that's going to be 19 minus 1, so that's 18. And then the interquartile range is going to be the difference between these two. So that's going to be 11 minus 4. So that's going to end up being 7. All right. And then it says, let's try number 1 from the assignment. Now, if you feel like you're in pretty good shape and can go ahead and do this one, that's great. I'm going to go ahead and pull up number 1 from the assignment. Let's do number 1 because there's something kind of interesting that we haven't come across before on these problems. Okay, here's number 1. Let's run through those steps again. We're going to write them in numeric order. So the smallest one is a 37, it looks like. 37, then it looks like we're at 41, then it looks like we're at 65, then 76, then 87, then 91, another 91, another 91, and a 97. So we've got them in order. So the min, piece of cake to find right there, we've got 37. The max, piece of cake to find, 97. The median, let's find that next. Again, if you wanted to just do this, count in from the outside, we get 87. 87 for the median. If you wanted to go through, and again, I kind of like doing this, I've done this enough on these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 plus 1 divided by 2, 10 divided by 2, we're looking for the fifth one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it matches up, it's 87 either way. Okay, and then if it is actually in the data set, I like circling that. And then you can see that it breaks the bottom half into, there's 4 of them down here, and then 4 of them up here. So Q1 is going to be right in between there, and Q2 is going to be right in between there. Sorry, Q3. So let's see, right in between 41 and 65, 41 plus 60, whoops, 41 plus 65 divided by 2, so that's going to be 106 divided by 2, that's going to be 53, so we get a 53 right there. And then right in between 91 and 91 is 91. Let's see, the range is going to be 97 minus 37, so that's going to be 60. And the IQR is going to be 91 minus 53. And 91 minus 53 is 38. Okay, now that's a great problem. And I think we've gone over enough that you can see how to do all of these different types of problems that are going to be on your assignment.